This is your Friday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Hope everyone's having a great day. I think this is like the last super cold day for a while. Knock on wood. Don't want to jinx it, but it feels that way, looks that way based on the extended forecast. So hopefully we're coming out of this a little bit. Got a lot to get to today. Sarah McLellan from the Star Tribune joins me here in a little while. A Minnesota Wild midseason report, and a good one at that. That team is rolling right now heading into the break. Playing, all four lines rolling well. The goaltending's going well. Looks like a team that is primed to do good things, but that second half schedule will test them in big ways. I've got a thought on Kevin McConnell's offense, new head coach for the Vikings, kind of what we might see from that offense this year if the Rams are any judge of that. And also you can certainly hear a lot more thoughts about Kevin McConnell and that whole coaching search process on Thursday's Access Vikings podcast, which is now live. Get to the Lynx, a big signing, Angel McCoughtry, and she was introduced to the media on Thursday. I will play a little bit of what she has to say there, but first, what did I miss? I'm going to start out with a voicemail from Velle III. He is in Beijing right now for the Winter Games. He is in semi-protocol after sitting near someone on the flight over there who eventually tested positive for COVID. So he's getting tested more frequently. He's limited a little bit in what he can do over there, but he still shared his experiences. Time difference, it's about 14 hours different over there than it is here. So when he talked to me, it was yesterday here, which is was tripping him up a little bit, but we're going to do this regularly, semi-regularly at least, throughout the Olympics with Velle and Rachel Blount over in Beijing. A ton of big-time Minnesota athletes over there as well. So here is the voicemail that I received and asked for from Velle III.
Hello, Mike. I hope all is well back there in yesterday land in Minnesota. It's actually 7:50 a.m. as I speak to you. I was awakened this morning at 6:55 with a phone call to let me know that breakfast had been served at my door, which consists of 1 egg, 1 sausage link, and 1 chicken sausage link with a small pastry. So, needless to say, that's a little bit less than I'm used to eating for breakfast. Then 3 minutes later, I was aroused from my dozing off after the initial call by a knock on the door with my the first of my 2 daily tests. So breakfast served at 6:55, throat swabbed 6:58, and I finally mastered this without having to gag when they stick that stick down my throat. So progress is being made in that regard. It's not as bad as it could be because I am allowed to work. I'm allowed to go to the media center as long as I spread out and stay away from close contact to people. I can go to venues and cover events as I did last night with the USA Women's hockey opener against Finland. The testers coming up today, I had to convince them to move up my afternoon test to 4 o'clock so I can get over to the National Stadium to be present for the opening ceremony, after which I'll be writing a column about just the sights and sounds and the pageantry of the start of the Olympic Games. It'll be interesting to see how many athletes will attend and how popular it would be. So I'm able to get around. I am spending more time in my room and just trying to spend more time spread out from people as I kind of work through this. It's going to stink. I have to arrange for a taxi to take me to every venue at our cost, I might add. So I won't know the next time I'll be on a bus or not. As for the competitions, we've got hockey and curling going on right now. We got some skiing events coming up in the next couple of days. Paula Matson from I think Lakeville South is getting ready to go. But USA Hockey Women Their next match is against Switzerland. That's going to be a pushover. Switzerland isn't really that strong of a team. So we want to get a real sense for the loss of Amanda Decker, who looked like she was on the receiving end of a dirty play by a Finnish player in their opening match. Suffered a left leg injury. It looked pretty gross. We have a still shot of it in the paper. It looks like right in the point where she probably was injured. And she's out for the rest of the Olympics. So they're going to have to make do without her. She's a veteran. She's savvy. She's really good in the face-off circle. And she will be missed. We also have Chris Plies and Vicky Persinger in curly mixed doubles. They need wins bad. They need to start stacking some wins together. And I'll probably be at the USA-Canada curling match, which will occur on Saturday, I believe, your time. Your time. It's hard for me to talk to people from yesterday. Sorry about that, man. But that's the challenge here. But other than that, things have been going well here. There's been some interesting sights. The staff here has been very polite, very respectful, and at times funny. I have not been mistreated here whatsoever. I have not had a cross word thrown at me. So I have no complaints, other than the fact that I picked the wrong spot to sit on the plane and sat in front of someone who tested positive. And now I'm in this semi-protocol, I'm going to call it. Hope all is well there, my friend, and I'll talk to you soon.
I love stream of consciousness, Velle. It's going to be fun to get these from him throughout the games and from Rachel as well. Looking forward to everything they cover over there. They're already hard at work, so please check them out in the Star Tribune and at startribune.com.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Really happy to have Sarah McLellan back on Daily Delivery. Of course, covers the Wild for the Star Tribune. Sarah, I think we need to do a mid-season report, a mid-season check-in of sorts, because we are at the exact halfway point of the Wild season. It probably would be a little bit beyond the halfway point if they'd been able to play all the games they had hoped to play, but it does kind of give a nice symmetry also with the All-Star break this weekend as well. It's been an interesting, largely successful first half of the season. Maybe I can just throw it to you in, just at the beginning here, as far, what have you seen emerge as kind of the big storylines in these first 41 games?
You're right. I think overall it has been a successful start or first half for this team to very much be in contention in the Central Division. I know, as you alluded to with the schedule kind of getting interrupted, teams have played different number of games and, the Wild has games at hand. So the team being, not at the top of the Central Division where it was previously could be a little bit of a factor. But overall, with the way the team is playing, I think still making a push and vying probably with Colorado for that top spot is probably something to watch in this second half. I think the recent play and then the performance towards the end of November into December when there was that 9-game point streak, I think those so far have been, the best stretches of hockey, the most consistent, the most productive. But I think on the whole, though, this team has definitely carved out an identity of being resilient, finding different ways to win with different lineups. This still, going into the halfway point, going into the All-Star break, this team, wasn't at full strength. We'll see when it does get to that point, and then see where the team takes off from there. The play recently where the team's been rolling, there's been key absences. So it's tough to say, is this potential? Is this the best it can get when this lineup, as intended to be deployed has yet to play in a while. So I think overall, though, like I said, the resilience, the depth, and I think that balance has really become trademarks, and the multi-goal rallies, the come from behind wins. I think that's kind of been part of this team's calling card. But also just the fact that, This is a team that I think very much is set up and prides itself on rolling 4 lines and 3 defensive pairings and 2 goalies. And that talk of, having depth and, relying on anybody, it isn't just talk. That's how this team plays. It really is a team that utilizes everyone. And I think into the second half, with how busy it is, that could become even more of a key for this team to have success.
I want to get into that second half schedule here in a minute, but the one thing you mentioned, the resilience of this team, I certainly think is a big part of that identity. And you've written about it almost on a semi-nightly basis. Our colleague Patrick Royce wrote about it, I think, last week, just that ability to score with, an extra attacker score. I don't know how many goals it is now, 13, 14, whatever it is at this point. What's that been like to watch and cover when you kind of know this team is never completely out of a game?
Yeah, you can kind of start to see the turning points, or, you kind of recognize when that tide is turning and the team is picking it up. And I think just because it's happened so much, you can tell that players believe it can keep happening, and falling behind by a couple goals after, a difficult first period, it isn't out of the realm of possibility for the team to come back and win. And, I've tried to, get at the root of this. How does this keep happening? And I really do think that practice and the repetition of doing it over and over again just really sparks more of this. And these players have been there, done that. And there's something to be said for that. Whether it's the muscle memory, whether it's the belief, but they definitely do have a knack for that. And it's really, when you look back and add up the points, they're valuable points. And, they're points that help the team get to where it is now and can set it up for this big second half push. But I think that's been key too. And sure, it's been, key players, but it's not always that headlining player that's helping spark these turnarounds too. And that goes back to the depth. A recent game, the 4th line, I think back to, having kind of a key moment and their turn in the spotlight. Yes, there's Kirill Kaprizov and Kevin Fiala and Matt Zuccarello, but, other nights it's, the Joel Eriksson Ek line, or, a key play on defense. So I really do think, as maybe cliche as it sounds like, the belief is there, and it's a team that plays that way too.
You mentioned Fiala. He's had a hand in a lot of those kind of late rallies and has seemed to find his game a lot, in the last 10, 11, whatever it is. And some of it's with Matt Boldy, which has got to be heartening for the Wild, just not only having Boldy come up, but, to play at the level he's played so far. And it seems like he might be here to stay.
Yeah, that is a tandem, obviously, that's proven to have what looks like almost instant chemistry since they've been paired up. And you're right, it's mutually beneficial, right? Matt Boldy settled in. He's looked completely poised for a rookie, hasn't looked out of place, has made a difference. And it's helped Fiala to kind of find his groove and kind of get back to the pace that we're used to seeing from him as, a 20-goal scorer. But I think too, even bigger picture from the team, that's another line that is a handful for opposing teams. This really isn't a team that's predicated on one line. Like, I really feel like if you're an opposing team, you look at this depth chart and, who do you shut down? So you're going to focus on Kaprizov and Zuccarello and Ryan Hartman. But then you have, the Jordan Greenway, Joel Eriksson Ek, Marcus Foligno line coming over the boards, and they're a handful. But then what about Kevin Fiala, Matt Boldy, and Frederick Gaudreau? And then there's the 4th line, which still gives quality shifts too. So I think the fact that those two have obviously developed chemistry just gives the Wild so much more balance. This isn't a team that hasn't had to load up one line and put Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Fiala, at one point Eriksson Ek. They haven't had to load up their best players on one line. Their best players are on separate lines. And I think that's obviously something that makes this team much more tougher to defend, and obviously gives the team production, throughout the lineup.
That makes it seem like this balanced scoring can be sustainable. We've probably had enough of a sample size to think that. I mean, Foligno having a career year with goals scored, Ryan Hartman as well, getting scoring up and down the lineup, Eriksson Ek having a really good year as well. Is that what they're feeling too? Like, this is not just, a half year mirage, that this can continue, not just for the rest of the regular season, but potentially into the postseason as well.
If that's the case, I think this is a team and a matchup that maybe others want to avoid, because it's just so tough to defend. You're right. I think half a season is probably, enough of a sample size to look at, the way that these players are playing. If they can continue that, the Wild could be, a tough outcome playoff time. Just because, like I said, you can't focus on one line. This isn't a team that's constructed that, okay, if you shut down Kaprizov and Zuccarello, there's your path to victory. That's not the case as long as the Eriksson-Ek line is doing what it does best, and that's being physical and getting in on the forecheck and stifling other teams' best players. And then you have Fiala and Boldy with Gaudreau, which, like we've said, has just emerged as another credible line for this team that's found a way to produce and contribute on offense and special teams. So I just think you're right that so far has emerged as an identity for this team. And if it can continue, which, like you said, the results back it up so far, this isn't a team has depth in name. It has depth in action. This is the way this team plays. And if that continues, I think it definitely bodes well for the team's future.
They have depth at goalie as well. Kaapo Kähkönen kind of, I don't say rescued is the wrong word, but they were in a bit of a rut there at the, middle part of December, early January, where they just couldn't play, first of all, because everybody, it was just the NHL and the COVID break and, missing games. And you got Cam Talbot injured during that outdoor game in early January. And we're a month removed from that now, and Cam Talbot has come back and played some since then. But what Kaapo Kähkönen gave them in, that stretch there where they got a winning streak going, I don't think that can be, I don't think we can look too much past that. Has that changed their thinking on that, or is there still a Cam Talbot, Kaapo Kähkönen clear pecking order as far as how they would proceed if both of them are healthy going forward?
I think their goaltending depth might be the most underrated out of all the position groups, because I think with, like we said, how busy the schedule is going to be, I think they're going to rely on both, and they're going to need to, just with how busy this is going to be, how frequent the games are going to, come on the schedule. And that, that might be the most underrated. That might be the most vital too. Just, with how key that position is, the tone that it sets for the team. And you're right. And I think there was kind of a shift post Winter Classic by the whole team, but you're right. It does coincide with a steady run by Kaapo Kähkönen. And I think his play has definitely kept him in the mix to merit more starts. Was that always going to be the plan, with how busy the schedule will be? I mean, who knows if he didn't swoop in like he did, if Talbot didn't get hurt, if all the games didn't get postponed, and, they didn't have, this busy February now after previously supposed to have the Olympic breaks. Obviously so many factors at play, but I think the way that he played recently has obviously set up, this team to be in a situation where it can rely on two goaltenders down the stretch. And I think, like I said, I think that could be really key. The forwards are doing their jobs. They're getting the scoring. Players are having career years. This is a defense that hasn't missed a beat, even though they've had to shuffle players in and out due to injury and COVID. But, to have two goalies playing and delivering results like has been the case recently, I think that might be, one of the most important factors during the second half for the Wild, just because, like I said, of how key that position is and, the boost that it could give this team and the way that it wants to play. That might be, one of the most intriguing developments to watch the second half, and how far the team can go with two goaltenders obviously capable of handling starts.
A couple more things for you, Sarah. Speaking of that second half, I mean, the NHL has kind of had to make this up on the fly. I mean, I think COVID has taught us all to kind of do that to a certain degree. I can't imagine like 5 years ago, a pro league thinking that it would adapt its schedule and just add games, subtract games like they are right now. But, it has created this scenario where they were going to have this Olympic break, then the players are not going over there anymore, and now they can kind of sprinkle games back in where it otherwise would have been. Does this how much does this factor into player preparation or just their mindset as they think about this whole season? Does it seem like it's just, we'll take it as it comes, or do you think it does affect them a certain degree that there's been so much unpredictability so far?
I've heard it's kind of familiar to last season, which was obviously busy. I think it draws comparisons to that, where obviously it was a little different setup with teams, only playing against their own division, but it was busy and it was pretty much almost every other day. And so I think we'll probably get back to that feel. And, looking back at how the Wild treated that, it was a balancing act between practice and rest and doing what was best for the players to get them ready to play that night. And maybe it was a day off. Maybe it was, an on ice session. And so I think that probably it would make sense to become the focus again and just kind of juggle what's best that week, that day, because it is going to get busy. And I think, we've kind of seen that shift more where, it's not the extreme of load management as we see in other sports, but it's just being very cognizant of the schedule and doing what it takes to maximize performance for games. And I think it would make sense, like I said, if that was kind of the shift now in this second half, because that break is gone. There's a lot of ground to be made up for some teams that have had games postponed. The Wild had 7 games postponed. So a busy time, but like I said, I think it's probably kind of a throwback to last season when it was, a condensed schedule and teams were playing pretty much on an every other night type basis.
That's what they'll face coming out of the break. They'll get back on the ice next week, and then, it's still a ways until the trade deadline. Feels like it's a late trade deadline this year. Maybe I'm just comparing it to what I think I remember, but you're still talking about March 21st, I think, for the trade deadline this year in the NHL. So I think we talked last time you were on just about what their potential needs might be, what fits could be. And, salary cap certainly plays a role in all this. They just gave Jordan Greenway an extension. But as you think about anything they might do going forward or any holes they need to patch, is it still the same kind of idea of maybe some specialists, things like that, or have other holes emerged or been patched up since we talked last?
I think it's still kind of very much to be determined. And that was obviously the vibe that Bill Guerin kind of acknowledged when I asked him recently, if he's kind of formulated a plan for the trade deadline. He said he doesn't know. And so, maybe that's, still see how the team performs coming out of the break, but it also might be too, like we said, this team isn't at full strength and it hasn't been for quite some time. So, maybe it's see how this team performs when everybody's back and healthy, but maybe that's the lift. Maybe that's the change. Maybe it's just getting everybody back on the ice. And that maybe could feel like a trade because it's been so long since this team has been at full strength. So I think that makes sense that it's a ways away. Factors and situations can change, and just kind of, acknowledging and seeing where the team is at that point, where the team's health is at. Obviously, we've seen that been, an issue for the team not being at full strength for a while now. But, I think though, this team has put itself in a position though to be competitive, and, we've kind of see both sides. Do you add to that and reward that and compliment that? Or do you preserve what you have? And is chemistry, a real thing that this team wants to preserve? I think those might be, as the deadline gets closer, those might be the two sides of the coin that come into view. Is this a team that has merited a boost to try to make that run? Or is this a team that has a good thing going and maybe it's best to keep it as is and see where it goes? That might be the debate that actually kind of maybe rises to the surface here as it relates to the Wild at the deadline.
Will be interesting to watch no matter what. And like you said, there will be a lot to watch. It's like 41 games and 81 nights, something like that. Once they come back, you will be busy. I hope you get a tiny sliver of a break, although it sounds like you're going to Vegas for the All-Star game, and you'll be, it won't be long until they're back on the ice. So whatever break you get, enjoy it. And we'll talk to you again soon, Sarah.
Thank you.
Great stuff, as always, from Sarah. Hope she gets a little bit of a break, like I told her, although things move pretty quickly here, and she is planning to be in Vegas for the All-Star game, so I don't know how much of a break she will get, and it'll come fast and furious in that second half of the season. But like she said, as we talked, their goaltending and the fact that they've got two guys now, Cam Talbot coming off a shutout and a solid first half of the year, and Capo Kakkonen, who had to play really well in his absence in a good stretch of January. Got both of those guys rolling well, and that will help when you got to play every other day, some back-to-backs in there, not wanting to wear any one goalie out. So pay attention to that in the second half of the season when it resumes early next week. Lynx, a huge signings, a big week for the Lynx. They got Sylvia Fowles back for at least one more season, she said, then planning to retire after that. And then they signed Angel McCoughtry, five-time All-Star. They're familiar with her from going against her for many different years. Injuries plagued Angel McCoughtry the last, two of the last 3 seasons, but when she is healthy, she is a tremendous player, a veteran, age 35, like Sylvia Fowles. Really feels like they're loading up for 2022 to try to take advantage of, Fowles, what could be Fowles' last season, kind of, make one big run with a lot of these, really good veteran players. Kayla McBride certainly in that mix as well. So it will be interesting to see how she fits into what they want to do. But I want to play a couple little clips here from her availability on Thursday, just kind of showing what she's all about and what she's looking forward to once she does get here for good.
Yeah, I would say I'm very excited to be here. I know it's tough for people to kind of believe in you again after being injured and at the age that I am at. So I'm just grateful that Cheryl can see through that, and she still sees that I have a lot of competitive left in me. Not only that, I'm grateful to be a part of the community of Minnesota. I've watched it over a long period of time over the years, and probably one of the best facilities I've seen in the league, best fan base. So to actually not have to be an opponent and try to fight through that, to actually be on that side, it's really a great feeling, and I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Lynx, if you'll remember, to have made the playoffs 11 years in a row, looking to make it 12 this year and to go even further and get back into that championship mix. Let's finish with the cooler. Big question that we're getting asked a lot is, what will an offense under new Vikings head coach Kevin McConnell look like? And we don't know that for sure yet. I mean, when he was with the Rams and anywhere else, even if he was running the offense in LA the last 2 years and will run it again in the Super Bowl before he is officially hired by the Vikings, you don't know how much influence is Sean McVay versus what he wants to run, but we can glean a few things from what they've done there. One really interesting thing to me this year is how good they have been on third down. That was a huge difference between the Rams and, frankly, the Vikings this season. The Rams were 5th in third down conversion rate at 45% in the NFL this season. Vikings down at number 26 at 36.4%. Strong correlation between third down conversion percentage and making the playoffs. I think 11 of the top 12 teams in third down conversion rate in 2021 reached the postseason, including, of course, the Rams at number 5. So pay attention to that. And within that, looking up on sharpfootballanalysis.com, third down passing, the Rams were the best team in the league in third down passing, averaging 9.7 yards per attempt. And again, that's with Matthew Stafford at quarterback, a good quarterback, but not someone who I would put in the upper echelon of quarterbacks. So, I'm sure offensive line has something to do with it. I'm sure scheme also, though, has something to do with it. So wanting to know if O'Connell can bring some of that magic of third down to the Vikings. I think he's going to use some pretty heavy, maybe 3 wide personnel, things like that. It's going to look different, but the run-pass balance, I should mention, is pretty similar to what it was in Minnesota. On first down, they ran it about 50% of the time, passed it about 50% of the time in 2021, just like the Vikings. I don't think it's going to be this super pass-happy attack. It's going to have some balance, but it looks like the scheme is the biggest difference in getting guys open on third down. And I think Justin Jefferson has to like what he might see. The big question beyond that, of course, is who is going to be throwing the ball. Is it going to be Kirk Cousins, or are they going to trade him? We will probably start to get answers to that as the month goes on. that will do it for me here today. That'll do it for me here this week. Thanks for listening to all of the shows this week. Feel free to go back and listen to anything you missed. Should be a fun week next week as well. More Olympics, getting ready for the Super Bowl. More Vikings assistant coach talk, I'm sure, and plenty of other stuff as well. Have a great weekend. Be back at it on Monday.